A driver pulls into a shaded parking space and feels an immediate sense of relief. The sun is hidden behind a large tree, and the steering wheel is still comfortable to touch. A sleeping child rests quietly in the rear seat while the driver considers a very quick errand. The reasoning feels simple because shade keeps things cool, but shade does not turn a parked car into a safe room. It only changes how quickly the danger arrives. The engine stops, the air conditioner falls silent, and the cabin becomes a sealed container. Warm air is already trapped inside before the driver reaches the store entrance. Outside, the tree blocks the brightest sunlight, but it cannot remove the heat in the atmosphere. It also cannot guarantee that the car will remain shaded. Within minutes, the shadow begins moving across the pavement. A thin blade of sunlight reaches the windshield and spreads across the dashboard. The child remains asleep, so there is no warning sound. The cabin still looks harmless from the outside. This is what makes a parked car so deceptive. There is no flame, no smoke, and no dramatic sign that the interior is changing. The danger builds through ordinary sunlight, warm air, glass, fabric, plastic, and time. Even a car parked in shade can become dangerously hot. To understand why, we need to follow the energy entering the cabin. On a hot day, the surrounding air is already carrying large amounts of thermal energy. When the doors close, that warm air becomes the starting temperature inside the vehicle. The metal roof, doors, windows, tires, and pavement are also exchanging heat with the cabin. A parked car has no active system removing that energy once the engine is off. Natural air movement through the cabin is extremely limited. The vehicle therefore gains heat more easily than it loses it. Direct sunlight makes this process faster, but it is not the only source of heat. Light that passes through the windows is absorbed by the dashboard, seats, and floor. Those surfaces convert part of that incoming radiation into heat. They then warm the air touching them and radiate energy toward everything around them. The windows do not create heat by themselves, but they help isolate the cabin from cooler moving air. This is often described as a greenhouse effect, although the full physics also includes weak ventilation and heat storage. A dark dashboard can become much hotter than the air around it. The seat beneath the child can also store heat and transfer it directly into the body. Shade reduces the strongest solar load, which is why a shaded car usually heats more slowly. But slower is not the same as safe. The shaded cabin is still surrounded by hot air and hot materials. Reflected sunlight can also enter from bright buildings, concrete, glass, or nearby vehicles. The roof may receive sunlight even when the windows appear shaded. A tree canopy may block visible light while allowing scattered radiation to reach the car. Clouds can reduce direct sunlight without making the outdoor air cool. Humidity can make the situation worse for a person trapped inside. The human body relies heavily on sweat evaporating from the skin to release heat. Inside a closed vehicle, moisture from breathing and sweating can accumulate. As humidity rises, evaporation becomes less effective. The body then keeps producing heat while losing less of it. A fan would only move the same trapped air unless cooler air were actually entering the cabin. Cracking a window may create a small exchange of air, but it does not make an unattended vehicle safe. The opening is usually too small to remove heat as quickly as the cabin gains it. Wind direction can change, and calm air may provide almost no useful ventilation. The car also continues absorbing energy from the environment. This explains why a shaded parking space is not a stable condition. A shadow is simply an area where one source of radiation has been reduced. It is not a guarantee that the sunlight will stay blocked. The angle of the sun changes continuously as Earth rotates. Buildings, signs, and trees cast shadows that slide across the ground. A car that is fully shaded at noon can be partly exposed a short time later. The driver inside the store cannot see that change. Even without moving shadows, heat can build to dangerous levels over time. Experiments with parked vehicles have found that shade delays heating but does not prevent hazardous cabin temperatures. The exact rate depends on the weather, vehicle size, paint, glass, interior materials, wind, and starting temperature. There is no single countdown that makes every shaded car safe. People naturally estimate risk by how the car felt when they stepped out. But the cabin they remember no longer exists several minutes later. The air conditioner had been removing heat and moisture while the engine was running. Once it stops, the cabin begins moving toward the much hotter conditions surrounding it. The cold air left behind provides only a short delay. Seats, panels, glass, and metal may already contain stored heat. They continue releasing that heat after the cooling system shuts down. The smallest passengers are often the least able to escape. A young child may be secured in a seat, unable to open a door, lower a window, or call for help. Children also gain heat faster relative to their body size and have less ability to regulate temperature than healthy adults. A sleeping infant may remain silent while body temperature climbs. At first, the child may sweat, breathe faster, and become unusually irritable or tired. As heat illness progresses, weakness, vomiting, confusion, or loss of consciousness can appear. By that point, the situation is already a medical emergency. A pet faces a similar trap. Dogs rely mainly on panting to release heat and cannot cool their entire bodies by sweating like humans. Panting becomes less effective when the surrounding air is hot and humid. A water bowl does not solve the problem if the animal cannot lose enough heat. The car can therefore overwhelm both hydration and natural cooling. The danger is not limited to children and pets. Older adults, people with heart disease, and anyone taking certain medications may tolerate heat poorly. A person who is asleep, intoxicated, injured, or unable to open the door is also vulnerable. Even a healthy adult can develop heat illness when trapped long enough. The body responds by sending more blood toward the skin. The heart works harder to maintain circulation and cool vital organs. Sweating removes water and salts from the body. If heat gain continues, core temperature begins to rise. Proteins and cell membranes stop functioning normally as temperatures become extreme. The brain is especially sensitive, so judgment and coordination can fail. This can prevent a trapped person from recognizing the danger or escaping efficiently. The vehicle has now become a heat chamber. Even though it began in shade, here is the assumption that must be reversed. Shade is useful for reducing heat exposure, but it cannot make confinement safe. It can protect a person who is free to leave, drink, move, and seek cooler air. It cannot protect someone locked inside a sealed vehicle with no active cooling. The difference is whether heat can leave the body and whether the person can leave the environment. A parked car fails both tests surprisingly quickly. The safest rule, therefore, has no temperature calculation and no waiting period. Never leave a child, dependent adult, or animal alone in a parked vehicle. Do not rely on shade, an open window, a reflective screen, or the promise of a brief errand. Do not assume an idling engine makes the situation completely secure because engines and cooling systems can fail. Create a habit of checking the rear seat every time you park. Place an essential item near the child seat if a physical reminder helps interrupt an automatic routine. Keep parked vehicles locked so children cannot climb inside unnoticed. Store the keys where young children cannot reach them. If a child is missing, check nearby vehicles immediately, including the trunk. If you see someone trapped in a hot car, contact emergency services without delay. Follow the dispatcher's instructions and begin safe cooling as soon as the person is removed. The original driver returns carrying a small bag and expects to find the cabin unchanged. Instead, the door opens onto air that feels heavy and hostile. The sunlight now covers half the rear seat because the tree's shadow has moved, nothing supernatural happened, and the car did not suddenly malfunction. Ordinary heat entered faster than the sealed cabin could release it. That is the hidden physics behind every hot parked vehicle. Direct sun accelerates the process. But shade only slows one part of it. The clock does not stop simply because the dashboard looks dark. A shaded car can still become an oven because an oven is defined by trapped heat, not visible sunlight. Remember the rule that matters when every minute can change the outcome. Shade is a delay, not protection.